was underway. Stamps his authority once again.
My word, this could go wrong.
On the brakes, goodness me, what a launch.
Look at that.
It just all comes down to this. Welcome along, ladies and gentlemen, to what will be nearly the halfway point of the season. Round number 6 here today at Hungary. And, well, we had a dramatic race last time we headed to the Hungaroring. Tonight we've had our fair share of dramas already. Of course, with me showing the wrong thing, opening up the wrong tab. That was fun. But we are here now and we should be all good to get going. My name's Joseph Black. Tonight alongside me will not be Kyle SW. He, unfortunately, he's in the process of moving. Instead, alongside me will be Max Ring. Now, Max, of course, it's your first time for a while back in the Almost Pro Championship. What's the feelings heading into this this 35-lap race around Hungary?
Well, first of all, hello everyone. Pleasure to be back here once again. It should be a very eventful evening, I'm expecting. Of course, Hungary is called Monaco without the walls, so I wouldn't expect too many overtakes, but this circuit does punish any mistakes that are given to them. Of course, where it's so narrow and also some of these corners are so fierce and so fast, it's very easy to run a little bit wide, pick up a track limit warning, or even just go onto the grass completely and see yourself spin around. It's a very tricky circuit to master. And also tyres are also a big thing to look out for as well. Not only their wear, but also on their overheating front. So, yeah, it should be a very interesting evening here, Joseph, when it comes to that. I'm not expecting too much action. I'm more looking at the mental mind games and the strategy is where we're going to see things come into play tonight.
Certainly will be 11 drivers racing this evening, including a familiar face we have not seen in a while, and we will get to it when we load into the lobby, which we are doing in just a couple of moments' time. But yeah, it should be very, very good indeed. The action across the course of this evening. Short qualifying and then a 35-lap race around the Hungaroring. Last time we saw Andrea Chenkovan. We were watching on board with Andrea Chenkovan, courtesy of Alex Bagnall. We were watching. He was going around and then he went straight into the barrier and was out of this race. So we might be seeing our championship contender out again. Of course, fingers crossed, hopefully not. But also, it would make things a little bit more exciting because, well, Cenkovan's had a very, very good start to the season indeed. And he sits 50 points ahead of Ollie Matthews in second place. So, a lot of margin for error.
Oh, yeah, certainly is. He's got that nice little buffer in there now, so he can make those mistakes, can Chenkovan, and can get away with it ever so slightly. Of course, he don't want to make them, but stuff like that, where it's a one-off moment into the wall, he's not got the pressure of losing that championship lead in the end. So it is very much all about him now just holding on and just making sure he gets through the rest of these races at this point. But of course, if Ollie Matthews starts to pick up those results and fights back, then the pressure will slowly get onto Cenkovan's shoulders. But with such a huge lead, I'm expecting that to be a one-off mistake and to see him straight back in and Chenkovan straight back on the action.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. Not Senkenovic this week, Andrea Chenkovan. And, well, we will be able to head to trackside and pick up the pictures from our Hungaroring in just a couple of moments' time. Once I've got everything sorted. Now that we've got everything sorted, here we go. It's trackside, ladies and gentlemen. We have 11 drivers, and we will go in order. So it's Owen Boldero in the Aston Martin. He is currently in that first place, of course. No lap time set, so it's not representative. Brian Moore is the Kick Sauber in second at the moment, and Ollie Matthews is Owen Boldero's teammate, and Connor Stewart-Woodard, he is the teammate of Brian Moore. Then you've got Paul Garung in the Mercedes, Alexandru Vicol in the Haas, Ethan Shackleton in the Ferrari, Burt Welly in the V-Carb, Andrea Chenkovan in the Ferrari, and then Regan Harding in the Williams, and Lucas Erosini in the V-Carb car that's right down at the very back of the field. But of course, no lap time set so far, and they're all coming out pretty quickly onto the circuit. It's going to be dry weather for this race, but it should be very good. Or dry weather at least for this qualifying session, and we'll see what they're able to do. Only Paul Garung, Ethan Shackleton and Regan Harding have not come out of the pit lane yet. Everybody else is out, and Ollie Matthews is about to head onto a lap of the Hungaroring.
Yes, he certainly is indeed. indeed, as he now makes his way down into that first corner. We'll see what he can produce, of course. Third place at the moment, but the first one around for a lap, and is now making his way into turn 3. He'll be braking around about 100 meter ball down to third gear, roll the car through the left hand and then back straight onto the throttle and head all the way up into turn number 4, down to 6th gear. Make sure you don't run too far wide. She will pick up an invalidation and then slowly bring it on the brakes into 5, down to 3rd gear. Usually you see drivers in 4, so a little bit extra for that rotation front, and then through the 6th and 7th chicane. Nicely done through there, down to 4th gear now for 8. Oh, takes a bit too much curb, causes a little bit of over rotation for the Aston Martin as he now swings himself all the way through the next part of the circuit and into that middle sector splitter. 54.1 in the middle part of the lap here from Ollie Matthews. Now into turn 12. That's a heavy braking zone. Hits the apex quite nicely as he now heads into 13. A tad too early on the brakes. Compromises his run ever so slightly as he now heads up into the final corner. He will try to get back on the power as early as you possibly can as it's such a long, agonising corner. And across the line he goes. It's a 1:16.0. That's the benchmark to kick things off. And we'll see what the rest of the field has to offer.
We certainly will, and the next driver to the line will be Alexander De Vickel, who at the moment is in 6th spot, and well, he wants to take himself off the back row of the field for the first time, I think, this season, and well, we will see what he can do around the final corner then. Vickel to the line, and he will pick up a 1:18.283. Andrei Chenkovan, fastest so far. He goes up with a 1:15.791 as the grid starts to fill out. Owen Boldero into 3rd place. Ollie Matthews holding on to that 2nd at the moment, and Brian Moore around the final couple of corners. His teammate, though, first of the line will be Connor Stewart-Woodard up to 4th, ahead of Vickel with a 17.932. Brian Moore to the line then will get an 18.119, but Welly is invalidated, so he won't be pushing on his lap. It will be, who was next to the line? I think that might be Ethan Shackleton, just about to start his lap. Lucas Erracini's right at the very end of his. He's picked up the pace throughout the course of this season so far. He's been one of the most improved drivers. Up to the line, quickest of all. Lucas Erracini sets a 1:13.934. What a lap time from the V-Carb man.
That's a very nice lap time there from Seracini to go to the very top. We now have the Williams driver of Regan heading their way into the final sector as he makes his way through the final part of the circuit. And we'll see what they can deliver up into that final corner now. Down to 3rd gear, brings that power back on nice and early. We use the DRS on the run to the line. And what's this going to be? It's a 16.5, stays 11th fastest. And now we'll see themselves, of course, go up to 5th fastest, actually, after the telemetry just did a little bit of a funny moment there, but up to 5th fastest there for Regan as Shackleton, I think, is making his way through the final couple of corners.
Certainly as he'll be around the final one now for the Ferrari, and he'll be hoping to get close to the form that he showed last season, and he's shown glimpses of this year, and at the moment, a 16.683 will put himself right in the thick of it, 16th out of the 11 drivers that we have. Burt Welly around the final corner, and the V-Carb man will head to the line. Both V-Carbs sporting the pink tonight, which is very good to see, but Burt Welly to the line. It won't be a particularly representative lap time, 22.055. He is pushing again, though, it looks like, and so we will see the V-Carb going on another lap. Everybody is taking a cool-down lap apart from him, so it's a good opportunity to have a look at the standings on our end. Having a look at, well, the drivers' standings, and it is going to be absolute domination for Andrew Chenkovan. Of course, it is so far this season with the performances that he's put in, and he's got 50 points back to Ollie Matthews in 2nd place. Owen Boldero is in 3rd, and they're putting up a very good fight for the Aston Martin team, and Lucas Erracini finds himself in 4th, but if he puts in performances like his qualifying one just now, he will be held in very good stead. Alexis Mason in 5th place, drops down a place from Lucas Erracini, but the W1 driver will be hoping to keep up that fight for the top 3. No racing tonight, though, from our APC reserve. Burt Welly finds himself in 6th place, 5 points ahead of Ethan Shackleton, just the one off of Alexis Mason. If he scores points here today, points as in not point, he will definitely go ahead of Mason, and then Ethan Shackleton in 7th. As I say, Matthew Gatches in 8th. He will not be racing this evening. Harrison Robinson and Leandro Ratto round out the top 10. Robinson also not appearing today. Connor Stewart would have just outside of the top 10. Dan Riley, 1 point behind him. He's not racing either. Brian Moore, 1 point behind Dan Riley, level with Regan Harding and Aria Stone with just the 6 points. Alexander Vickel with the 3. Paul Garung, who we've not seen at any point this season, making his first appearance, becoming the 17th driver to have made an appearance today. And, well, if we have a look at the team standings as well, Andrea Chenkovan and Ethan Shackleton lead that with 187. Second place is Aston Martin with the 127. And don't forget, the team results are also counting the reserves, and I believe it was Alexis Mason who raced in the Ferrari and won a couple of weeks ago. Racing Bulls in 3rd place on 116.11 off of the back of the Aston Martin outfit, and then a big gap back to Williams with just the 29. 25 for McLaren and 24 for Haas, who should be able to leapfrog the team that don't have a single driver. Then Kick Sauber on 20, Mercedes on 16, and they've got one representative, that being Paul Garung. Heads around the final corner now.
Yes, Paul now making their way to the line and goes to second fastest. Nice lap time there from Garung up into the 15.4, just a tenth shy of the V-Carb driver. And a big slide as well on the exit of that outlap. Shackleton, I think, has just finished a lap time there. Yes, but was no improvement found, or if there was, it was a rather minimal one. And for Shackleton, will stay 6th fastest. Everybody else on a outlap. I say that Svenkovan has just started an attempt. Now gets a nice slipstream actually off teammate Ethan Shackleton there. So he now makes his way through turn 2. And now on to the power up into that first sector split. What we're going to see here from the Ferrari driver, it's only a 13,000th of an improvement. Of course, still 2 sectors to go. And this is where you can find the chunk of the time. Through that middle part of the lap here, Joseph, can the Ferrari put themselves on the front row of the grid?
He's going to give it a go. He really is going to give it a go. And he's going to try for the opportunity to get back onto that front row of the field. Not too bad of a lap time so far set. And he should be on for a very good run. By the way, we will hopefully be seeing Dan Riley at some point this evening. Our pit reporter Kyle SW is informing us that the Mercedes driver is desperately trying to get in, but has game issues. Purple sector allegedly for Andrea Chenkovan in the second sector, so this should be a very good time. 26.5 in that second sector, 26.9 in the first, and so this should be a challenger for that pole position if he can hook it up. Of course, the pole time at the moment at 15.3. Chenkovan finds a 15.1. Owen Boldero jumps past his teammate into 4th place. Ethan Shackleton is on an in-lap. Regan Harding is pushing, but he's not quite at the end of the lap. That goes to Brian Moore, who's around the final corner. He's going to come to the line. It will be a 1:17.109 for the V-car, for the Kick Sauber driver even, and he will be right up into 9th place, 8/10 of a second ahead of his teammate, and a bit more ahead of Alexander Vickel, who is just about coming out of the pit lane now. Regan Harding, a couple more corners to go for the Williams, the sole Williams here this evening. We are not seeing Harrison Robinson just yet, and I'm just going to see whether we are supposed to be seeing him all tonight. It's up to the line for Regan Harding, 16.458, and in fact, there is a couple of pieces of information that we have to tell you. Andrea Chenkovan is registered to not race this week, so not sure what's going on with that one. He's not registered to race. Aria Stone as well has become a reserve. He cannot commit to the full-time racing in the series, and so he has decided, unfortunately, to drop down to a reserve, and maybe we'll see the Williams back at some point later this year. He has been replaced by the man who has now become the full-time Mercedes driver once again, and that will be of course, Paul Garung, who is the sole driver here tonight for the team. Owen Boldero, 4th place, his teammate 5th, down by 0.067 is the Aston Martin, and he's got a couple more corners to go to see if he can improve. Receiving word as well that Harrison Robinson quit without warning, which is unfortunate, but that is sometimes what can happen. And he is no longer in the server. Anyway, up to the line for Ollie Matthews. He is up to 4th. He's jumped his teammate again. And it's a fascinating teammate battle once again between the two Aston Martins.
Yeah, it certainly is quite an interesting battle here between Boldero and Matthews at the moment. Only just over a tenth and a half separates the two drivers in fourth and fifth. Doesn't look like anyone else is currently on lap times. Grung's just come out for an outlap and is actually now making his way through the final part of the circuit. So we'll see what the Mercedes driver does have to offer throughout the fight for his next attempt. Of course, not too long will be remaining at this session. We're going to be probably around about this halfway stage. A little bit further on than that. We've got 6 minutes remaining of qualifying. And it is Chenkovan who's currently at the very top, but not being registered. I don't know if that means he could be in some hot water before we even get underway into the race. But for Paul Grung, a nice exit out of the first corner. A little wobble, but it won't affect him too much as he now makes his way into turn number 2. Down to fourth gear, bring the car out to the right-hand side, back on the power, and fling your way through 3 and head up the hill into turn number 4. Later the brakes, down to 6th gear, big lift as well, and then into turn 5, down to 4th gear. Oh, takes a bit too much to that inside curb, a bit more over rotation from Grung as he now makes his way through the chicane, wide from the first apex, going to affect him even more through the middle part of this lap. Will need to find at least 3.5 tenths of a second to beat Chenkovan at this stage of qualifying as we now head through turn 11. It's a big slide for Grung into the wall. Lucky to not pick up any damage there in the Mercedes. Was just testing the limits with those apexes, just kept taking too much inside curb. And for the Mercedes driver, he paid the price, took off more than he could chew. And unfortunately, we'll have to come into pit lane and abort and do another lap.
Absolutely huge slide. Well saved in the end from himself. And yeah, he was not having a good time. Good news, by the way, for the other Mercedes of Dan Riley. He's been able to make his way back into the session, or he's been able to make his way into the session, in fact. So he's got the opportunity to go racing. But, well, he's invalidated, so he will not be improving on his lap time of a 1 minute 16.559. And, well, we'll see whether Bert is able to improve on that time that's currently season 5.5 tenths ahead of Brian Moore, and it's currently season 500ths off the back of Ethan Shackleton in 7th place. Big split between the field. It's going to be a 3.2 second split between the top, Andrew Chenkovan, and the bottom, Alexander De Vickel. Of course, not counting Dan Riley in that, who's not set a lap time so far, but he's going to give it a go. Regan Harding, the first driver out on track, Andrew Chenkovan the second, as we will get our final runs of qualifying underway, and we'll see who's able to take this pole position away.
Yes, we certainly will, as Regan is going to be the first one out of the pair. Of course, Chenkovan is still pushing on too. Of course, Chenkovan will just be looking to extend that margin at the top. Currently, nearly 3 tenths of a second. And for Regan Harding, we'll be looking to try and even break into those 1 minute 15s. We'll need to find near on half a second to do so. But you can't rule it out at all. So for the Williams, just need to set themselves up nicely. Got Chenkovan just behind, but still has a big, big old buffer that the Ferrari can back off into, as actually Grung has done a quick turnaround to get straight back out. But with 3 minutes left in the session here, Joseph, it's a bit of an awkward time to go out because you can get caught by traffic, as you can see more drivers leaving the pit lane. So for Regan and Chenkovan, they could be in a bit of hot water come the end of the lap.
Yeah, luckily, though, not too many drivers have made their way out of the pit lane just yet. Quite a few waiting a very long time as Regan Harding comes to the line. Will start his final lap, and he'll get ahead of the Mercedes of Dan Riley, who's just come out onto the circuit for the first time this evening. Regan then going wide out of the first corner and just breaking down towards the next zone. It will be the shortest DRS zone of the lap of 2, and he will be absolutely fine. Regan Harding out of the end of the first sector, then it will be a time. At the moment, his best is going to be a 27.304, and then he sets a 27.271, so a minimal improvement, but he's invalidated, will not be improving, and all eyes turn to Andrea Chenkovan, who hopes to seal that pole position, as Lucas Erracini didn't even set a second lap time.
Yes, Erracini hasn't set another lap time just yet, and Chenkovan's aborted this attempt as well, or potentially just didn't even start pushing on this attempt. So for Chenkovan, just doing a double out lap maybe. You do get a lot of fuel for this circuit. You can do 2 runs on the, of course, lowest fuel amount you could put in the tank, as Gru as well is going to be just doing a second outlap. So it could just be a fact as well here, Joseph. Drivers trying to get their tyres into the right temperature, try and get them into that window by the time they start their lap to then be able to push on. Ollie Matthews, though, is pushing into that first corner. So we are going to see a proper racing and qualifying lap here, coming near these dying embers of qualifying. It's going to be from the Aston Martin driver as they make their way through turn 3.
Yeah, he's going to give it a go as Ollie Matthews at the moment, and he's not done bad so far in this qualifying session. Finds himself in 4th place, but with still a little bit of room to improve. Get ahead of Paul Garung, get ahead of Lucas Erracini. Improves by 1/4 of a tenth of a second, or 3/4 of a tenth of a second, even in the first sector. So it's not too bad of a lap time he will want to capitalise upon, and he has to push as hard as he possibly can now to get the highest position possible in this qualifying session. I know I sound like Will Buxton there, but it is the case as Matthews heads up to the second sector split time. This will be from himself a lap time of a 53.902, so he's improved by 700ths of a second, and that is good. He needs to find a bit more though if he wants to challenge for that front row. He's got 3.5 tenths of a second forward to Paul Garung. He's got a bit more forward to Lucas Aracini. So if he wants to improve, he needs to lock in on this final sector. Up to the line then from Ollie Matthews, and it's a 15.675. So it will not be a positional improvement from the Aston Martin. It will be Alexander Vickle next up. He won't be improving as the checkered flag is waved. Andrea Chenkovan around the final few corners. He's going to give it a go to try and finish this qualifying session off strongly. Up to the line then from the Ferrari, and it will be a 1 minute 14.995. The first driver to make his way into the 1 minute 14s in this session. It's going to be Owen Baldero next to the line, improving, and lost time in that final sector. Paul Garung in that first, and Dan Riley to the line. He can only muster up 10th place. Connor Stewart-Woodard improved by 1/4 of a second, has found a little bit more time. He makes his way into the top 10. Burt Welly up to the line, up to 6th as well. Lucas Eracini, though, did not improve in the first 2 sectors, and the third one, he's not found enough time to climb above Andrea Chenkovan. Brian Moore then, next one up, and he's got exactly 5 tenths of a buffer back to his teammate, 6 tenths of a buffer ahead, but he won't be gaining or losing any positions, and with Shackleton backing out, it's only down to Paul Garung to finish off this qualifying session as he heads through the final 2 corners.
Oh, through the final 2 corners, it was a big old slide there for Garung. Could have potentially took the front row of the grid away there from, of course, the V-Carb in second. And unfortunately for Garung, it was just not meant to be. Again, just too hot and heavy on the throttle, too hot and heavy with the risks taken. And for Garung, it has not worked at all in his favour. But we start 3rd place. It's still a respectable qualifying position. You can still make up the lost time in that opening few tours. But for Garung, will be kicking himself. That's 2 brilliant opportunities for at least a front row of the grid squandered by 2 very similar mistakes. One in turn 11 taking a bit too much curb, and that time it was taking too much throttle out of the penultimate corner. But it is, of course, Chenkovan who takes pole position here this evening, Joseph. The championship leader once again flexes his muscles. We'll see what he is going to be able to do into the race with a 3.5 tenth advantage after qualifying. That's a huge margin, especially at this part of the game cycle.
Certainly is, although for Andrea Chenkovan, that's nothing, as he gets 3 tenths of a second on everybody else. Lucas Eracini in second place, Paul Garung in third, Owen Baldero in fourth, Ollie Matthews in fifth, then Burt Welly, Regan Harding, Ethan Shackleton, Brian Moore, Connor Stewart-Woodard, Dan Riley, and Alexander Vickle. Look at that, absolutely nailed that one. But now we are heading on to what will be race day very shortly, and have we got any early predictions, Max?
I think there's one big prediction that is staring us right in the face at the moment, and that's going to be for the race winner. And if Chenkovan doesn't do what he did last week, where he decided to put it in the wall, he certainly has a great chance of winning this one. If you're 4 attempts clear in qualifying, yes, qualifying in the race, you're slightly different. You're in a lighter car. You're on the softs. You're just focusing on pushing flat out. But he is the championship leader as well for a reason. So I think with the margin, with what he could potentially do throughout that first and second lap, Chenkovan is certainly going to be the man to beat, and it's going to be difficult to put the fight up to him.
And just to clarify, it wasn't last week. It was last time out when we headed to Hungary, is what Max means. But either way,
Wow.
it will be very interesting to see Andrei Cenkvan take to the circuit that would have scared him last time out. It gave him a moment of a mistake, and now we'll get the opportunity to see him try to right his wrongs, or maybe the circuit can bite back. Andrei Cenkvan, a very good start to his campaign. And, well, he will hope to continue it on. This will be round number 6 of 12. And, well, next week is the last one before a break. Hungary will be the host of round number 6. Then we've got round number 7 at the Netherlands. Then we've got a week break at the start of April, or the end of March. It will be the 31st of March, where we get a Tuesday evening off. Monza will play host to round number 8. Then Azerbaijan and Texas will be our host for the sprint race later on this year. Brazil, Las Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi will round out our season, although with the way that Qatar and Abu Dhabi have been going, we might have to cancel those races too. But either way, it's been a very good season so far as competition goes. The two Aston Martins can really, I think, genuinely take it to the Ferraris when we're not putting very quick reserves in that car, that is.
Yeah, it certainly is. So we'll have to see how, of course, they do when, of course, they don't get reserves in those cars. And of course, for Ferrari, they've got a really healthy lead at the front there. It's just really Ferrari domination at this point. I think it is really Cenkvan helping a lot in that. Of course, Shackleton has scored some points, so he is also contributing. But for Cenkvan, he's just absolute dominant at the front of the field, and that helps in the constructors' standing as well. But with Matthews and Boldero, they're two very strong drivers. But we are now heading to the formation lap here, Joseph, of course. Be interesting to see what tyres the drivers have elected for. It seems a lot of them are on the medium compounder tyre to start things off with, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few rogue drivers potentially use the hards.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see, and we'll get the opportunity to see as we go down to track side. And, well, just make sure that your entire screen is clear so you can be watching this one back. We are testing it out this week. Somebody else other than Kyle having a go at the cameras. And if it's in any way wrong, entirely blame Max. It's entirely his fault, not me dragging him in last minute. We do have a couple of riders on the hard compound tyres. You can tell I did motorbike racing at the weekend because I called them riders. It will be Regan Harding and Ethan Shackleton who are both on a set of the hard compound tyres. And that's very, very interesting to see indeed. Ethan Shackleton went for the gambled strategy last week. It ended up paying off for him. He's going to hope to do exactly the same this time around. It'll be very interesting to see the comparisons between those drivers as the race session progresses and the way those tyres go, because of course the data that myself and Max will have will be from the esports side of things, and this is the Almost Pro Championship. This is where we're not quite at that esports level yet, so maybe the tyre wear, the tyre management, everything along those lines isn't quite at the level that they would be hoping for, and quite at the level that we have the opportunity for. But it is what it is, and we will see what they will be capable of doing. It's all a learning experience at the end of the day, and we shall see what will happen. Owen Boldero and Ollie Matthews. Now they seem to have discovered what they think is a glitch to game the system. I don't think it's benefiting them at all, because what it is they are retiring themselves from this session. They're warming up their tyres, then retiring themselves. It resets the tyre wear, and it puts their tyres back to 70 degrees, which is cold, but they seem to think that it seems to work. So if they would like to do that, they can absolutely do that. A couple of teams in communication here today. It will be the two Racing Bulls drivers, and the two kicks out was accompanied by their race engineer, aka Anthony Davidson, aka Kyle SW. The cars are now all on the grid and ready to go racing, and we will have the 5 red lights very shortly. Andrew Cenkvan on that pole position, Lucas Aracini alongside him. The lights are on, the drivers are ready. And the action is underway now. Lucas Terracini gets off to a good start. He'll be alongside Andrei Cenkvan into the first corner. Owen Boldero will be alongside as well. with, well, now Lucas Erasini, who looks like he's got a bit of wheel spin, actually, after that start. And Owen Boldero up to second place. Ollie Matthews up to fourth, just ahead of Paul Garung. And they will slot out in those positions. But Welly trying to make his way through on Dan Riley and has done on the inside line. He might get both Mercedes on the exit of the corner, but he won't quite do so. He sits in behind. Regan Harding and Ethan Shackleton both losing place off at the start because of those hard compound tyres. Regan, though, going for a move on Riley, looking to the outside, can't quite do so. Brian Moore looking to the inside of Shackleton, can't quite do it either. And so he sits in behind, but Chekhov had a 6/10 gap up the top of the field. And that is a very good start for himself. Shackleton, his teammate, going for a move on Regan Harding. Can't quite pull it off, so remains in behind the two at the back. Maybe going side by side. No, it's Connor Stewart at the back. Out. Regan Harding almost out of the DRS. Paul Garung the same, but Andrew Chenkovan who leads.
Yeah, lovely start there from Chenkovan to take this race lead from that pole position. As, of course, he'll now try and scamper off down the road and now see about what he can do, of course, for Boldero. Going to try and put as much pressure onto the back of the Ferrari as possible as he is starting to slowly catch up and head into that first corner just behind for now. No real move is able to be made down that main straight. You can see Chenkovan is just so fast out of that first corner. We also have a squabble here between Paul Garung and Burt. Around the outside goes the V-Cub. Can they pull that one off? Yes, they certainly can. And up into 5th place goes the V-Cub. But Garung is now fighting back in that slipstream, looking to the inside line, and has been able to get straight back through up into turn 4. So the V-Cub thought they won the battle, but Garung won the roar here on lap 2. And for the Mercedes, just going to have to now try and close back up into that DRS of, I think, Ollie Matthews. And, of course, for Burt, he's got to try and stick with the Mercedes.
Yeah, he's going to give it the go to try and stay with the Mercedes. And, of course, that's going to be one of those that will be shown on the race replay. We didn't get the opportunity to see it on the live stream, but we will get the chance to see it after the race. And make sure you keep your eye out on all the social medias. I believe it comes out every Monday, if I remember correctly. But yeah, make sure you keep an eye out on that one, so then you can watch the race in its full form. Andrew Chenkovan has set the fastest lap of the race, has been able to break free of Owen Boldero for that second place. I'm going to try and fix my mic, so I'm just going to hand over to you, Max, for a couple of moments.
Yes, well, of course, it is Chenkovan leading the way. We might actually see a potential squabble between Regan and also on to Daniel Riley, with also Shackleton potentially getting involved. I think there was a move there from Burt onto Paul Garung. We might see Paul Garung fight back once again, but no. Paul Garung just having to sit behind. And finally, the V-Carb has been able to make their way through, but at 3 seconds behind Ollie Matthews. That could be a slight issue now starting to form. Daniel Riley is really starting to come under pressure from Regan behind, and of course those hards will slowly come into favour over the mediums. The pendulum will swing into the Williams drivers' favour as they go a little bit wide as Regan, and now heading through turn 11 back on the power. Those hards of course will go longer into this first stint, and we'll see what happened. And into the back of the Mercedes goes Regan, straight into the back of Daniel Riley, gets the move done, a push to pass overtake there from him. And of course Shackleton will try and now capitalise on this as well to potentially see himself through. He's going to try get the exit out of the final corner, open up that DRS, and now get the run all the way down into turn 1. Of course Riley also has the DRS in this moment, so could the Mercedes fight back against the Williams? Yes, he does. To the inside goes Daniel Riley. He gets ahead for now. Regan is still trying to hold this one now to the inside, but here comes Shackleton to the outside of Regan, and he gets the move done. The Ferrari up into 8th, the Mercedes up into 7th in the span of 2 corners. The Williams drops down into, of course, 9th place. So, of course, as we head through turn 5, this squabble really still bolstering on. These are the only real squabbles out on the circuit. We do have the front few in DRS range, but it doesn't look like anyone's going to go for those overtakes for now. So it is just going to be entirely Ethan Shackleton now putting that pressure on to Daniel Riley in front. Going to be looking for a move to turn 12. Can't get it done there. And now heading into the final part of the lap. Is this going to be the moment that Shackleton potentially gets that move done and makes his way up into 8th? And for the Ferrari, it's about this run. He's got the DRS. It should be an easy move.
He's going to give it a go. Ethan Shackleton to the inside line of the first corner on Dan Riley. He's got the run and he's got the move done into the first corner. The hard compound tyre runners trying to bully Dan Riley out of position, but Dan tries to get the exit on the corner. He's still got the traction at this point in time, so he's alongside, but Shackleton just makes his way ahead and up into that 7th place, which he continues to hold for the time being. 3.4 the gap between himself and Hungaroring though. So a big gap that he won't be able to surpass until those tyres go a little bit more off. We're hearing, by the way, about Connor Stewart-Woodard. He sets his tyres to maximum pressures, so they are overheating at the moment, and that means the pressure from Alexander Vikol can come right on. And, well, at the moment, it's looking as though that replay camera is going to come in clutch towards the end of the race, because I've missed a couple of those battles while I was untangling wires and trying to fix my microphone. Either way, you'll be able to watch those ones on Saturday, not on Monday. I will correct myself, and definitely didn't get corrected in my messages. But either way, Connor Stewart-Woodard is at the moment trying to hold on ahead of Alexander Vikol, but he will be uncomfortable on those tyres, and we will see where they end up. Lap 6 of 35, and it will be into the first corner for Ollie Matthews, trying to chase down Luca Seracini. Seracini himself trying to catch Owen Boldero, who doesn't have the DRS of Chenkovan.
No, certainly does not. And in the background as well, Regan has gone for that move there onto Daniel Riley. He's got the move done ever so nicely with the DRS. That was a lovely move to the inside into that first corner. Riley is going to try to squabble it right around the outside. There's some contact between the two as they now head through turn 2 and now into 3. But Riley just not got the momentum into 3. And Regan is finally able to move himself back up into that 8th and try to hunt down Shackleton in front. But 1.3 seconds is that gap. That could be rather difficult to do so. Boldero, of course, as you mentioned, has fallen out of DRS range from Chenkovan, so I think the Ferrari driver has certainly checked out at the front of this field. And oh, that's of course Seracini coming under some pressure here from Ollie Matthews, as he had to maybe take a little bit of a jink to the inside at turn 12. So for Seracini, we'll just have to try and dial in an Aston Martin sandwich. And the big thing that Boldero and Matthews have here is the numbers game. And Boldero can really help out his teammates to get this move done.
Certainly can. They are working together at the moment, are the two Aston Martins, not just in VC, but also on track. Owen Boldero, defence of the inside line. Luca Seracini tries to go the long way around, and he can't quite do so. Seracini off of the track. This might open the door for Ollie Matthews to come through. Perfect defence from the Aston Martin, and it might be Ollie Matthews on the outside to take that position right back from the V-carb driver, but a good defence from Seracini. He holds on to that 3rd place, and Ollie Matthews holding on to 4th. So not making any gains, but not making any losses either. No time loss for any of them, apart from the fact that Owen Boldero's defence has meant that the gap between the top 2 drivers is now 2.4 seconds. So as you say, it is very much checked out at the front, Andrej Chenkovan, if he hadn't already, because the gap between the 2 drivers is very, very big. For reference, on the last lap, Andrej Chenkovan set a 120.840. Owen Boldero set a 121.4. So there is a 6/10 difference between the 2 drivers, and that's without the fighting. With the fighting, it's going to be even more. But Andrej Chenkovan very much showing the pace of a champion here today. And it almost feels as though it's a case of when, not if, he is confirmed for another title in the Almost Pro Championship. But it's neither here nor there for Andrej Chenkovan at this point in time, as we might be seeing a move back into the first corner from Luca Seracini.
Yes, we certainly might. To the inside goes Seracini as he now makes his way into that first corner, but just can't get the run on Boldero on the exit of the first corner. But the DRS is helping dearly. And now heading into turn 2, the Aston Martin can't make his way through. And for Seracini, has to keep in that 3rd place for now. And of course, it's just really trying to put that pressure onto the Aston Martin in front. Has dropped a little bit of time through that first sector. And for Ollie Matthews, he might now start to capitalise. It just keeps ebbing and flowing, does this battle. Of course, Saraceni seems to be a little bit worse through the corners, but down the straights is lightning fast. Whereas for Boldaro in front, he's a little bit slower through down the straights, but in those corners, he's electrically quick.
Absolutely is, and well, in the meantime, in the middle of that battle, Alexander Vickel had a problem in the final couple of corners, which meant that the pressure that he was putting on Connor Stewart-Woodard will amount to absolutely nothing, unfortunately, and he has dropped down even further to the back of the field, so he looks like he will remain pointless in this race. Did we have a driver into the pit lane? Yes, we did. Ollie Matthews diving in on lap number 9 of 35. And, well, Lucas Aracini closing in on Owen Boldero into the first corner, going to the inside, switching to the outside line. And I don't know how much of a defence Owen Boldero is going to put on here as he tries to push him to the outside. So a bit of a defence here. Lucas Aracini still tries to hold himself to the inside line. It will be turn number 3 where this position will continue to be scrapped over, and Saraceni tries to push Boldero wide, but Boldero keeps the tyre in, but doesn't in the end have as much grip as Saraceni, who jumps up into that second place.
Yes, we certainly are, as of course for Saraceni that is a very strong move there. And for Boldero will now start to slowly fall further back. Be interested to see where Ollie Matthews, of course, comes out in relation on this undercut. And how quickly can he navigate through the traffic as well? And how quickly will the others respond? Of course, Senkovan has got that big old gap he can use. Now heading through the left-hander. The penultimate corner of turn 13 has stayed out a little bit longer. What about Saraceni and Boldero through those final couple of corners? The second Aston Martin has come into pit lane as Ollie Matthews has got by on the first part of the traffic. It was the first of the 2 Kicks Albers, and now he's going to be hunting down Daniel Riley in front to see if he can get through.
Certainly will be. He's got just under a second here. I have DRS down the main straight, and these two were very well matched last season. Not sure where Dan Riley's pace has gone, but he's not been anywhere near the boil, which has been disappointing to see for one of the regulars of the Almost Pro Championship. But I'm sure he'll be back at some point, and Ollie Matthews to the inside line gets through on Dan Riley. His teammate comes out behind, so that means Saraceni is almost certain to drop back positions and drop back behind even Brian Moore, if Moore doesn't come into the pit lane on the next lap. Burt Welly is chasing in on Connor Stewart-Woodard and might go for the move to the inside line. Yes, he does. Those tyres might not be warmed up, but that is not going to affect the move made. And that will be Burt Welly up back into the top 10 and chasing down the other Kick Sauber now. As Owen Boldero, the latest driver, to try and get through on Dan Riley to the inside. He makes it, and the Aston Martin jumps up to 7th place.
Yes, lovely stuff there from Boldero, utilising the road well. Saw the opportunity and knew he couldn't get stuck behind Daniel Riley in that traffic. And instantly was like, thank you very much. I'll take that position from you. And for Boldero, now he's going to try hunt down his teammate of Ollie Matthews. We've got Shackleton all over the back here, Paul Gruer here, as we now see out of the final corner. DRS open for the Ferrari, of course, on those hard compounder tyres versus the mediums on the Mercedes. And Shackleton to the inside line, late on the brakes he goes, and he moves himself up into P3 as Paul spins round. That's another spin for the Mercedes. He's had a torrid time, and that's now 3 in the span of qualifying and the race for Paul. And that's another moment on the throttle where he's just a little bit too greedy with it.
Yeah, Paul Garung going around there. Unfortunate, but you could see that one coming. He must be a little bit rusty, or maybe he just fell asleep at the wheel. Of course, a couple of weeks ago, he slept through the race, unfortunately. That was the last time we were supposed to see him. He is back, and, well, he is just shaking off the rust at this point in time for Paul Garung. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. And he will continue on in this race. 5th place now is where he's fighting for, rather than further up. So he might have got a bit of a nosebleed on his return to the Almost Pro Championship. But it is what it is. He will continue, and he will hope to keep up with the pace that he was demonstrating earlier on in this race. But Welly threw on another kick sail, but this time it is going to be Brian Moore that he's going to dispatch of, and he's going to jump up into 9th place. Those hard compound tyres will be just a couple of laps old now. That will be, in fact, 2 when they cross the line. So very much within their operating window. Probably quicker than a set of the mediums, especially those mediums that are a little bit worn, as Ollie Matthews threw on Paul Grung. A bit of contact, according to the contact model, between the two. But either way, it will be Ollie through. It will be Owen through. And it might be another problem for Paul Grung. He's had a very unfortunate time. I think he might have the same problem as of course, we have with Connor Stewart-Woodard, where he's got too high pressures on the car. But either way, that's a couple of mistakes made. And that is Paul Grung dropping down the order past both of the Aston Martins, who set their sights on that podium position.
Yep, that was nice work there from both the Aston Martins to make their way through. And now looking to the inside on Daniel Riley is Burt, as we're going to see to the inside into turn 6. And he has managed to sneak his way underneath through 5, set it up into 6. And that was lovely stuff from the V-Carb. And he's moved himself up into 8th place. Next will be Paul Grung in front of him to hunt down, as of course Ollie Matthews is actually starting to catch up to Regan as well. So this is going to be a battle for 4th place potentially brewing by the time we exit out of that final corner. DRS open for the Aston Martin. There's plenty of battery compared to the, of course, Williams, and he makes his way through rather easily. And at the back of the field, unfortunately for the Haas, he is spun around and is well behind the back here of Connor, as he's now 15 seconds behind, nearly a whole pit window between the drivers in 11th and 12th.
Yeah, it is unfortunate that we've had a few drivers having real problems here today in terms of their just their pure, keeping it in a straight line. Maybe it's just a setup thing. Maybe they are not comfortable around this circuit. I'm not surprised if they wouldn't be comfortable, because it's just not one of those circuits that can keep you there. As there's a yellow flag. Is that Dan Riley? No, it's not. It's Paul Grung around again, and he's almost back within range of his teammate. He's got Burt Welly for company now, right down in 7th place, and Owen Boldero all over the back of Regan Harding. They'll be coming onto the main straight in just a couple of moments' time, and you'd think that Owen Boldero will be desperate to make his way through. Regan Harding with 12-lap-old hard compound tyres. Owen Boldero with 3, and I think he's just going to wait to pick up the DRS as Lucas Aracini dives into pit lane, and Owen Boldero on the outside line into the final corner.
As around the outside goes Boldero. Regan actually holds it in there on the inside, but DRS open is just going to be an easy overtake for the Aston Martin, as easy like makes his way through. Saraceni, of course, has come into pit lane. And where will he come out in relation to everyone else? We actually might see a move here from Burt onto Paul Grung. He certainly has got that move done onto the Mercedes and has come out in front of his teammates. The Saraceni has come out now down in 8th place. And for Burt, he's up into 6th. A lovely move there with the DRS onto Grung. And the Mercedes driver will just have to try and hold pace. I say that, another big old wobble for Grung out of turn 2. He really is struggling with those tyres. I wouldn't be surprised if you're correct on that front, with it being, of course, with the tyre pressures, but it could also just be the wear as well starting to play a factor. And of course, as your tyres get more worn, there's less grip, there's less purchase, and it just makes things even worse for you, and you see yourself going round as Matthews is all over the back of Ethan Shackleton.
Yeah, all over the back of the driver in P2 at this point in time. And, well, the Aston Martin really wants to split the two Ferraris, as, of course, this is the championship battle. This is the fight for the top of the constructors so far. And, well, we will see as he comes around to the main straight where he's able to finish, and where he'll able to finish that main straight as there was a move. Lucas Aracini through on Paul Grung. Ollie Matthews through on Ethan Shackleton, sets his sights on the race leader. Shackleton cuts across, tries to stay within the DRS range. Owen Boldero waiting in the background in the meantime, and the two Aston Martins have worked together so well yet again to get up positions. But now the next target, a big one, 14 seconds to Andrea Chenkovan I don't think it's surmountable, but of course with Chenkovan only having pitted once, all the other drivers potentially on a two-stop strategy, Chenkovan could be in a world of good here.
Yeah, certainly could be in a very strong position. Of course, has stayed out on those mediums from the get-go. Wouldn't be surprised if he's doing a one-stop here. By the time he comes into pit lane with a huge tyre delta to Ollie Matthews behind. As we've got Bert slowly starting to try and reel in Regan as well. 6.3 is that gap, and it is tumbling rather quickly at this rate. So yeah, for Chenkovan, he's just going to keep pushing forwards. But Matthew has found about a second over the course of that middle sector. So those medium tyres certainly starting to struggle here for the Ferrari. But I wouldn't be surprised by the time the Ferrari comes in, it'll be the exact same predicament for Ollie Matthews. He'll be the one being hunted.
He certainly will be. Ollie Matthews will be the one under pressure, as at the moment it's Owen Boldero, the one under pressure from Ethan Shackleton, who's managed to remain within range of the Aston Martin at this point in time. Will want to make his way through, cannot quite do so just yet. But it has been a very interesting race. It's been a very, very fascinating one to watch as the two V-carbs have swapped. And, well, this has been one of the most interesting cases, so I'm glad that they've done something to make them particularly relevant at this point in time. The two, or in particular, Luca Serafini, doing the strategy that he did, where he went very long on the first stint. I think he was trying to commit to the one stop, but at the end of the day, I just don't think he had the tyre wear to be able to do it.
No, he just didn't seem so, and for Serafini, it was all just about trying to take that tyre as long as possible, but I just don't think he was able to take him as long as he even potentially thought he could have. So this strategy has not worked out. I'm expecting a potential two-stop here from Serafini. I mean, Chenkovan has been able to take those tyres 16 laps before he's had to come into pit lane now. And so those hards could easily go around about 20 laps. So potentially Serafini can put off the one stop here. Of course, the two Aston Martins I'm definitely expecting on the two. But for Serafini, he needs to make sure he's able to keep up pace, but then also save those tyres at the same time and not just drop like a stone near the end of this one. He does set the fastest lap of the race and into boot as well.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one to watch this season, Luca Serafini. He's jumped up and down in terms of the performance and his pace. But now, as Andrei Chenkovan comes out of the pits, not too far ahead, he's got an opportunity to prove himself on the biggest stage once again. And of course, the biggest stage being the fights with one of the most iconic drivers in the Almost Pro Championship, potentially the only, or the most even iconic driver. Sorry, Stuart, if you're watching, most iconic driver in Almost Pro Championship history, because of course Andrei Chenkovan has won multiple titles, and he's won them all on broadcast, whereas Stuart won them when it was a little bit more in its infancy. But of course, both very, very iconic drivers, and it's a shame to not actually see Stuart Towers racing this weekend, or this season even, not weekend, because of course he was always a very, very good addition to the grid, and well, he likes to support from the sidelines now, which is always good to see whenever he does pop up in the chat. But this is a fight at the moment for that 5th place. Andrei Chenkovan leading Luca Serafini, as that might be a move slightly further up the order. Andrei Chenkovan now on the back of Regan Harding. He's got bigger problems to worry about, and that will be Regan down 1, down 2, and can Serafini take advantage and move to the inside line? He's going to have a go, but no, I think he just backs out and he won't give himself a good enough exit to be able to pull alongside.
No, just won't be able to pull alongside there on Chenkovan. Serafini got to try and look to the outside line, but no, not close enough for that attacking move. As we also see one of the kick Saubers slowly close up to the back of Paul. Actually, no, it was on Daniel Riley. I think Daniel Riley actually made a mistake there and it allowed Jedi through. And for Riley, he's now going to try and fight back with a DRS, but just can't get it done into that first corner. He's going to look for the exit out of turn 1, though. Use that DRS wisely, and maybe even a little bit of battery as we head into the second corner. But no, just can't get close enough. For Daniel Riley, we'll just have to sit behind us. Garung is our first victim of track limits when it comes in this race, and he picks up our first 3-second time penalty with Bert all over the back of Regan. We'll want to try and get by as soon as possible.
Certainly will. He certainly will indeed. want to get past on Regan Harding, catch up to his teammate as Dan Riley has a brief look on the inside line of Brian Moore, decides not to go for it, decides just to back out and maybe go for it on the exit. Nope, still not a move made from the Mercedes, but he stays in behind. Burtwelly going to go for a move on Regan Harding as Connor Stewart-Woodard joins the 3-second club. Burtwelly through nice and easy. He's got 3.5 seconds now up to his teammates. He's lost a decent chunk of time, as has Lucas Erosini, who's not in the DRS of Ethan Shackleton. Now that could be very crucial, or Andrew Chenkovan even. That could be very crucial because that is the fight for the race lead. And if Andrew Chenkovan can sneak away now, that is curtains.
It certainly is, as actually Chenkovan has just been allowed through. That's the Haas round as well, once again out of turn 4. But yeah, Chenkovan's just been let through by teammate Shackleton. A nice swap there from the Ferraris. And now Shackleton can play his teammate in absolute blinder. He can just now sit behind and just hold up Seracini, especially through this middle sector as Regan now picks up a 3-second time penalty. They're coming in thick and fast now on those 3-second time penalties as we reach that halfway stage. And for Shackleton, is he going to look to defend this one from Seracini? Is he going to try and hold up that V-carb for as much as he possibly can? That gap already 2.2 between himself and his teammate. And you can just see Shackleton really just being a little bit slower through that final corner and just holding up that V-carb there as we now enter down that main straight. He's saved up the battery to then dispense it all down this main part of the circuit, down into turn 1. He looks to the inside to fight back. Seracini is through. But look at that, lost nearly 3 seconds. And that was lovely teamwork from the Ferraris.
Certainly was the Ferraris' very good team. They've had to be challenged this year in terms of their teamwork because of the way that the teams have been set up, where they are more with people that they are likely to work with this year. That has been the case. We'll be interested to hear what Regan has to say come the end of the race about, of course, his teammate who left as the lobby was being set up. He left the server and potentially never to be seen again. But of course, Regan did speak to us last week about his teammate, and the fact that his teammate is not here anymore is an interesting development indeed. Hopefully he'll jump into the box after the race, and then we will hear from the Irishman about what has indeed happened. But it is what it is at the end of the day for ourselves, and he can just have a new teammate. I mean, Paul Garung's jumped in and out this season, and we're all the better for it. We're all the better for having Paul Garung in the league, and we are all the better for having every single one of these drivers because, of course, they make a valid contribution. Even the likes of Leandro Ratto, even though the way that he left whilst rather funny on reflection, very, very difficult to bear because, of course, he was a very good driver and he just got a little bit too frustrated with everything that was going on with a move that was probably a racing incident, probably not. Who knows in the end of the day, because nobody reported it, because the man who was going to report it left the league. And so that is just the way that league racing can go sometimes. The two Aston Martins in the lead and in control of this race, but they're going to have to keep hold of those tyres.
Yes, they certainly will have to keep hold of those tyres, and Chenkovan is nearly within DRS range of Boldero, and it could actually be within DRS range now. So yes, he is. Owen, it's all over the road as well in that Aston Martin. The Ferrari just pushing on for now. And, of course, will be within DRS range by the time we reach that main straight. Owen is really struggling on those hard compounder tyres. Of course, has been on them for quite some time. Came in around about lap 8, I think. And has now done near enough a good old 12-lap stint on those hard compounder tyres. DRS will now be open for Chenkovan as he now heads down that main straight, pulls to the inside line, and as easy as you like, before we even reach the braking zone, is up into that second place, and will now try and hunt down Ollie Matthews as his teammate Ethan Shackleton comes into pit lane. And we'll see where Shackleton comes out as he's going to move over to a set of the mediums. He should take those to the end of this race. So he's tried the run-stop strategy. And for Matthews and Owen here, I think there could have been a big miscommunication, Joseph, on that strategy front. Trying the two-stop, I just don't really see it working, especially with Chenkovan if he gets into this race lead.
Owen Boldero will tell us all about it at the end of the race. I can guarantee you that one. And he will make his opinion very well known as he tends to do. We ask him how his race has gone, and he will tell us for about 10 minutes how his race has gone, which is never a problem. Makes it easy as an interviewer for somebody that just talks and talks and talks. And of course, it made him a fantastic commentator as well, and he is part of the Driveline media team now, which we are both a part of as well, which is very, very good to see, and it's thoroughly deserved for himself indeed, as he's a very good commentator, and he is a very, very nice guy as well. It's fair to say. I know, and if you're watching this back, hello, yes, we're glazing you. But we are going to head on to the next lap number 23, and we've got another mistake, it looks like. Is that Paul Garung again? Yes, it is.
It is.
Another mistake. But Ollie Matthews and Bert Welly into the pit lane. And when you say it is, does that mean you were able to catch it on the replay camera?
I just missed it, actually. I saw him picking up the speed again. I saw the yellow flag come out, and it was just getting back underway when I flicked over to him. I was just checking on at Schenkervan, and then I saw the yellow flag, tried going over as quickly as possible, but Garung, I think it was another half spin from the Mercedes driver, which we've seen oh so much this evening, which has been unfortunate because he's got the pace. It's just been the fact he's been a little bit too greedy with the throttle or the curb, and he's just finding that limit, and he finds it through one corner, and then the very next corner he makes a mistake, and unfortunately it all goes out the window. But for Garung, he started third. I think he'll be happy with his qualifying here, Joseph. Race will be very disappointed with how it's gone, but for a driver that's just come back into the tier, potentially just shaking off some rust as well, you gotta expect a few mistakes here and there. And for Garung, I think he's mainly just focusing on getting this one to the end and making sure he gets some miles under his belt as Owen comes into pit lane.
Yeah, he certainly will. That will be the aim for himself, and as you say, Owen Boldero into the pit lane. But if you are promised by the pace, then you are in a very good position as Regan Harding through. As Paul Garung mistake at the same corner, it looks like he's just taking too much curbing at this point in time, and he will hope to continue on and just pick up the experience. As we say next week, we go from a track with a lot of curbing, with a lot of tricky curbing, to another track with a lot of curbing. But it is what it is at the end of the day. I've said that like 60 times throughout the course of this broadcast. But yeah, we've got the Netherlands next up, and that's another one where they can take a lot of curbing. They can also be punished quite easily.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's a circuit where it very much does punish, of course, those mistakes, and of course punish the drivers for even just being a little bit too hot on the throttle at certain corners, or even braking a little bit too late. It's very much a driver's circuit, is Zandvoort, not really too much relying on the car. And it's just all about having some sheer confidence and finding that line. For a majority of the circuit, especially that first sector, Zandvoort is pretty much like being on a train track. You follow one line and that's it. And then you divert into that middle sector. You could start to differentiate a little bit more. And in that final sector, you're mainly just focusing on staying in touch until that DRS zone. So for Zandvoort, it's going to be a very similar challenge, I think, here to Hungary. But, of course, with less overtaking opportunities, I feel like it will be a little bit more of a challenge for these drivers to keep it within the limits.
Yeah, certainly will be. Indeed. Everybody outside of the DRS with 10 laps to go. And, well, I say that. Dan Riley makes a move because Paul Garung has had a problem. Either that or he's just decided to let his teammate go because he doesn't quite have the confidence in himself to run ahead of Dan Riley at the moment. And well, the two drivers just will continue on in the formation that they're in. 8th for Dan Riley, 9th for Paul Garung, who has taken a bit of time to get back going and get used to racing once again in the Almost Pro Championship. 10 laps to go, as I say, and it is almost a 10-second gap between Andrea Chenkovan and Luca Seracini. In fact, Chenkovan is coming around and will surely at some point come through and lap the drivers behind as well. He's already lapped a couple of them. I'm having a look. Who is that? That will be Connor Stewart-Woodard who's been lapped. And, well, he's got Brian Moore a little bit too far up the road, but I'm sure he'll be coming around to lap him at some point, and also Alexander De Vickel twice. So another very dominant performance from the Croat to be able to pull out of this performance out of the bag right now. But We'll have a look at the tyres once again, and we'll see if anybody is actually going to come into the pit lane again. I'm not sure, but I think those who've got the likes of Lucas Erracini, the likes of Brian Moore, I think they're going to have to go in again. 9 or 10 laps, maybe, but I think a little bit longer, they're going to struggle.
Yeah, I think they certainly are. It's going to be very difficult for them to come to the end. So for Matthews and for Owen, they're going to have to just try and pull this gap back as much as they can. Of course, for Ollie, I think he's in a better position. Of course, he's closer. And the fact he's on the hards. I think for Boldero, he's gone quite audacious with those mediums that early on. They're going to be very much on the cliff. A bit like what Chenkavan's tyres will be come the end of this race. So I think for Matthews, he's in the prime position to do something, but being 13 seconds behind with only 8 laps to go, he needs to have an abundance of pace over Chenkavan, and I just don't see him having it. It just seems too far-fetched, especially with Chenkavan's pace normally on fresh tyres. I just don't think, even on those worn tyres, there'll be that much of a pace differential.
No, it doesn't seem to be the case. Because, Andrew Chenkovan, once again, it's another circuit that he's managed to nail. I'm under the impression, from what I've been told in the past, that Andrew Chenkovan is not this dominant in other leagues that they race in with the same drivers. So I don't know what it is about the Almost Pro Championship, but it just makes Andrea that much more dominant. And I could be very wrong, and I could be misquoting somebody. But that's what I've heard, and it's very interesting to know that fact, because as soon as it comes to a Tuesday, he's just that much better than everybody else. And, he is looking like he will be taking home another championship, you would imagine, this season. Very, very good driver indeed. Lucas Erracini is the latest one to look like he might be able to challenge. It was Dan Riley towards the end of last season who gave him a real go. And don't forget the likes of George Chapman, I believe it was, last season out. And all of those names that could be brought back into the fray at some point, or be drivers like that, even if it's not the same drivers. There are quicker drivers than Andrew Chenkovan out there. It's whether they are going to be signing up. You think you're a quicker driver than Andrew Chenkovan? You think you could prove me wrong? The link's in the bio. Make sure to come and join us. But yeah, he's just very, very talented indeed, is Andrew Chenkovan, and he is going to be a thoroughly deserving victor of this one if he does come home and actually win this one this time.
Yeah, hopefully he is able to get rid of those ghosts of the past from when we were last here at Hungary and make this one all the way to the Lions. The yellow flag in the first sector. Looks like it could be for Bert, who's actually potentially had a moment, because it's allowed Regan to slowly close a little bit further up, but not too much. It was for Bert who made that mistake, but it's now back underway and pushing forwards. And Ollie Matthews is all over the back now of the V-Carb in front of Cicerino, as we're going to see now through turn 11. There's another yellow flag around the circuit. Is that for Paul Grung? It could have actually been for Paul Grun. He's just getting back up to speed out of the hairpin of turn 14. But back to Ollie Matthews and to see if he can make his way up into second place. He's got a full tank of battery. He'll have the DRS as well, and he shall surely breeze by here. It's going to be a defensive jitter from the V-Carb in front of the Aston Martin. They will look to the inside, and as easy as you like with the DRS, even if he doesn't get it done under braking here, we'll have the DRS through turn 2. Around the outside is trying to be off the road completely. Oh no, didn't go completely off the road there, did the V-Car, but he was able to stay on the road but lose an abundance of time to Ollie Matthews. And for Ollie Matthews, next on is will be Chenkovan, but with about 7 laps remaining, he'll need to find at least 2 seconds a lap to the Ferrari in front.
2 seconds a lap is a lot of time, and it's a lot of time that he does not have. He is 4/10 slower on the previous lap time than Andrew Chenkovan, and he will be unlikely to make the gains in on the leader, as that will be another moment for Paul Garung. Yes, it will be into the wall and shaking off that rust quite literally at this point in time. They will continue on for the last few laps of this race. He will pick up points regardless, unless he drops another 30 seconds to Connor Stewart and behind. He will pick up points, or point, and it'll be a decent performance from himself, all things considered. Could have been better, but if you gauge it by the pace, he's been pretty half decent, has Hungaroring. And yeah, he will just hold station at the moment and get himself on the board, become the 17th driver to get himself on the board of points. He will pick up the 1 if he holds position. If he gains any places, he'll pick up 2. If he gains any more places than that, and he's challenging Alexander Ivica already, and he's actually going to get past Alexander Ivica with only 3 points to the Haas driver's name. But yeah, it's a very, very fresh restart to league racing, if I can call it that. He is refreshed, but he hasn't quite gotten up to proper racing speed, and so he will remain in position for now, and he will remain racing in the Almost Pro Championship, hopefully, for the rest of this season, because it's always good to see Hungaroring, and it's always good to see some more competitors coming to the fore.
Yeah, it certainly is. Of course, we love to see more drivers coming into the division and coming into the league. As, of course, Jedi's passed Daniel O'Reilly, who's come into pit lane. We've got Boldero closing in for 3rd place as he actually gets past the ghost lapped car of the Haas, and will now try and make his way up onto those podium positions. Should be able to. It looks like it's going to be a 2-3 here for Aston Martin. And somebody else who's gone very under the radar here as well, Joseph, who's done rather well. It's Ethan Shackleton, up into 5th place at the moment. Started, of course, down in, I think it was 8th, where he started this race. So to gain 3 places and finish in the top 5, that's some good points for Ferrari, a race win in a 5th. And that somewhat cancels out a 2nd and 3rd that Aston Martin will pick up. So at the end of the day, they're able to keep a healthy championship lead. And the man leading the championship as well is currently looking to extend his championship lead as well.
Yeah, the 2 Aston Martins, if you average it out, I think those are 2 very well-matched teams, the Aston Martins and the Ferraris, but unfortunately it was just Alexis Mason jumping in as a reserve, taking a victory for themselves. As what has happened?
Oh, there was some contact there between Owen and the V-car there, Seracino. I don't know what on earth happened there, but heading into turn 6, it just seemed like the V-car dropped it ever so slightly, and then the Aston Martin went straight to the back of him and just tipped him nearly all the way around. And for Owen, he's up into 3rd place, as easy as you like, and there was not really anything he could have done there.
Yeah, Luca Seracini, unfortunate there for him. And, well, it's one of those. We'll, of course, have to wait and see whether there's anything said later on about that one. But, of course, yeah, it's disappointing for Seracini. Owen Boldero on to the podium and looking to hold on to that podium position. And, well, we will see what will happen. 32 of 35 then, so we are nearing the end of this race. And it's been a very intriguing race indeed. And it demonstrates, I mean, we were talking about it a minute ago, it demonstrates what is going to happen with regards to the championship, the Aston Martins and the Ferraris. And in fact, we've not referenced at all the pre-race interviews that the drivers came in for. So I'll just run you through some of those now. And the reason it was brought up is because we had one from Luca Seracini, who was very happy about the last race. And he was able to bring a new driver to the league, may well be racing next time out. He's got no idea, or he had no idea how he was going to perform here, but he predicted and hoped for 4th place, and at the moment that is exactly where he's running. We had another interview come in from Owen Boldero, who said he felt really good about the last performance. He hates that track, but he was able to hit the ground running and do pretty well. He feels all right about this track, and he wants to get top 5, which of course he runs himself in. We do have another interview from somebody who we don't regularly get an interview from, but we'll hear from Alexander Ivica in a second. But first, Burt Welly, good since he was able to get P5 after getting smacked into a wall. Nothing, normal, good points, haven't done a single practice lap. that pretty much sounds like every single time we speak to Bert Welly. Anyway, Alexander De Vickel gave us a really, really good detailed breakdown of how he feels, and he said for the previous race he was the most prepared from all races, but the stress and tiredness got to him, didn't manage to keep his composure at all, and lost good points to easy, avoidable mistakes. He'll put less energy into qualifying training, as for some reason he gets really stressed and it affects his performance. Also, wouldn't affect him that much, as in qualifying the others are at least one level above at the moment. How is he feeling about this race? Not very confident, but as in every race until now, will really enjoy all the battles with the Saubers, which he almost got until he didn't with Connor Stewart-Woodard. And then he realised that even though running with no assists is the hard and slow way, he's really proud of his journey. He has about 200 to 300 hours on Formula 1, so the progress for the moment, in terms of all of the Formula 1 games, so the progress for the moment seems really good to take small things as big wins for the moment, and that is absolutely right. And that is the attitude we want to be seeing. Not necessarily somebody coming in getting frustrated that he's not winning, but he feels as though he's improving every single time, and that is exactly what we want to see in a driver in a championship like this. That's why this sort of championship is hanging around and sticking around, because of drivers like Vickel. Hopefully soon we can see Vickel do a Saraceni and suddenly appear further up the order. Lap 34 of 35, Andrea Chenkovan halfway through it already. He's 7.5 ahead of Ollie Matthews, who's been able to gain a little bit, but not enough to really challenge. And it looks like he's going to go on to take the race victory. It'll be Luca Saraceni just off of the podium, but with that penalty that he has, as we get a penalty update, he'll be slightly closer to Ethan Shackleton than I think he'll be comfortable with.
Yeah, I think he certainly will be comfortable with that one. Of course, for Shackleton, he could even finish 4th place in this one if he puts his foot down and closes up to Saraceni, of course, who is in that 4th place at the moment. Picked up a 3-second time penalty and is still soldiering on. But Chenkovan has just started that final lap in the Ferrari, and he has absolutely dominated in this race so far. One more tour, one more lap to displace the ghosts, to get that little worry out of the back of his mind every time we come to Hungary, that he may never get an opportunity to take a race victory again. And he may now right his wrongs and just release the demons and get them away as he makes his way through turn 4. He took that so cautiously. He knows he just needs to bring this home.
Yeah, it's going to be a slow lap, I think, from Andrea Chenkovan. And, well, it's absolutely fine. I mean, he might be managing those tyres towards the end of the race because he might be fearful of punctures. But either way, he has put on a very, very, very stellar show. And he has been an incredible driver all the way throughout. We watched on board last time, or Alex Bagnall more specifically, watched on board with Andrea Chenkovan as he ended up crashing out of the last time we were here in Hungary, but this time he's been able to hold it together, and he's shown the Andrea Chenkovan we know just that little bit more. One more corner to go and he's headed out of it. Andrea Chenkovan will be victorious once again in the Almost Pro Championship. He wins in Hungary, and he will win by a big margin, and a margin that could have been even bigger if he didn't manage all the way through the final lap on Ollie Matthews. 3rd place then will head the way of the 2nd of the Aston Martins. It'll be Owen Boldero to take that one home, to take the final spot on the podium. Luca Saraceni being chased in by Ethan Shackleton, but I think the timer has just run out for the two, and in the end it will be Saraceni finishing ahead by 3.4 seconds, or in the end only by 0.2 of a second after the penalties are applied. Ethan Shackleton will pick up 5th place, Bert Welly in 6th, Regan Harding in 7th, then Dan Riley, Brian Moore, Connor Stewart-Woodard, who gets through on Paul Grung after penalties, and then Alexander De Vickel, who will come through and become our final finisher for today's action. But it's been a very interesting race strategically, but a race that's demonstrated exactly why Andrea Chenkovan is always, has always, and will always be championship material.
Oh yes, 100%. Chenkovan extends his championship lead, and it was just domination from the get-go. Kept the lead from lap 1 in qualifying, and just he never really looked back. He took pole position, and in the race, he just, after the 2nd lap of the race, he just completely flew away. He did not show any signs of doubt. He didn't have to fight really too aggressively. He didn't have to sweat too hard for that one either. it was like a walk in the park. It was like a Sunday drive for the Ferrari, and he was long gone and clear. And that was a perfect drive there from, of course, Chenkovan. And yeah, just strengthens his championship chances and extends it by another, of course, 7 points. So very lovely stuff indeed.
Certainly is, and certainly does for Andrei Chenkovan. As well, we will get the opportunity to speak to some drivers, I would imagine, in just a couple of moments' time in the interview room. And well, we will see indeed who will get the chance to have a talk to, and it will be, to start off with, straight away, we're going to throw Ethan Shackleton into the mixture. And well, Ethan, it was a race of ups and downs for yourself. You went for the gamble strategy again. Just talk me through it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had a very poor qualifying. All 3 laps I did, I made an error on. So that meant that I was starting further back than I'd like. So my theory was, because I'm out of position, let's do the alternate strategy again. And I didn't realise the 2-stop would be so powerful. I did think everyone would be doing a 1-stop. Yeah, I was very surprised, and the 2-stop actually might have been quicker today. It looked very good.
Certainly did. I mean, we got 2 stoppers on the podium, but not at the very top. I mean, your teammate Andrei Chenkovan, you two just, it's looking as though you're going to be heading home to take that constructors title already.
Yeah, he's unreal. He's so good. Yeah, it's not really down to my doing so much.
Well, you still got to stick in the consistent performances because you've got Aston Martin coming through. How much of a threat do you think that team will be to yourselves later on in the season?
I don't think they will be a threat. Chenky's so strong. I think we're good.
Yeah, that's ultimately fair enough. Right. Well, we will let you go then, Ethan. So thank you very much for joining us, and well, we'll see you next time out.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
That was Ethan Shackleton, and next into the box will be Brian Moore, who we're going to drag away from a conversation with a man that I've married him with, I think, a couple of times this year, Owen at Bold Aero. But, I mean, Brian, just talk me through that one.
It was an interesting one. Okay, sure. I mean, yeah, I think the main race today was sort of Dan Riley. Obviously, he beat us in the end and couldn't catch him, but it's just sort of a race of try to stick with him, sticking that penalty window near the end, and just do what I could with the tyres and just make sure I didn't get a puncture at the end.
Yeah, fair enough. It's all about that time management and, well, 1-stop strategy, 2-stop strategy. Which one do you think ended up being the better one?
I think possibly the 2-stop, but I don't think there was much in it in the end. I think the 1-stop, which I think Chenkovan did, I think 1-stop, if played right, was the strongest strategy. It just depended if you could play it right and what people around you did and sort of what tyres others decided to go onto.
Yeah, it is one of those things. Of course, next up, we've got the Netherlands. How are you feeling about that one?
I'm normally pretty confident around the Netherlands, but this year's game, I don't feel as confident. So it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be one I'm actually going to practice a fair bit for to try and get a bit of pace. But I'm not sure how confident I feel for it.
Yeah, we will see, of course, what happens next time out. Thank you very much for joining us in the box today, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Lucas Erasini, next up into the box, and well, very up and down race, which ended up going pretty well for you. Talk me through it.
That was not a good race, to be honest. Like, my rears were just overheating so bad, and they were slipping everywhere. Like, it was on the chicane. I was ahead of Owen, like, for the final 10-ish laps, and they just went completely. And it didn't help that I was on minus fuel for like most of the race as well. I think like up to lap 5-ish. I put an extra 0.2 laps of fuel and it just burned away so quickly. So I was basically just lifting and coasting for most of the corners as well.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It didn't seem to be the easiest circuit to adapt to, was it? Was there a struggle for grip out there?
Yeah, it was horrible. Like I didn't do any practice, so I didn't know if the one stop was better or the two stop, and I just didn't know what like corners would be worse for sliding. So I was kind of just taking them all normally and hoping I wouldn't slide on the exits, but it didn't really work.
Fair enough. And well, next week, of course, we head to the Netherlands, which is a similar circuit, I think. How are you feeling about that one?
Uh, Hopefully going to be a lot better in the race, but I don't think I'll be as good in quali as I was here.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Of course, you got straight into it straight away and managed to take provisional pole after the first runs. Well, that was Lucas Aracini. Thank you very much for joining us in the box this week, and we'll see you next time out.
Thank you.
And now, last into the box, or I believe this will be last into the box. The man who likes to talk, so we'll set him off on it. Owen Boldero. That was a harsh introduction. Owen Boldero, talk me through that one.
Well, we did something a little different compared to everyone else. So me and Ollie were talking in DMs this morning, and I sort of said I've just done like 15 laps against AI and gained like 10 seconds in 6 laps on with the undercut in like a 6 lap undercut. And I said the two stop could be faster. So we talked about it, and on the grid, we decided that we were going to two stop. I'd already selected balanced because originally I wasn't expecting to two stop, and he'd gone harder because he was planning to the entire time. So I had to make two mediums work, but it was all right. But yeah, we talked about it, and we were like, we'll go lap 7 and 8, something around that area, because that then we go sort of 10, 15 laps on hards, and then we can go on our next tire right until the end. And come when we pitted and got on that undercut, we just gained a ridiculous chunk. I think on Luca in about 7 laps, we gained like 10, 11 seconds. And then come the final stop, because we had 10 lap newer tyres again, we just clawed back everything we lost in the middle stint, like really quickly. So in the end, it was a really, really good race. And I'm really glad we did the two stop because I'm not sure the one stop would have worked for me.
Yeah, it's always about that tyre wear, and your tyre wear seems to be rather high. We spoke very briefly to Lucas Aracini about this one. I wanted to get your take on this as well. We saw a number of drivers struggling for traction out there. Was it a particularly slippery track?
I mean, I didn't struggle, but I have the assist of traction control on medium. So, I mean, personally, there was a couple of corners where it was a little bit slippery. The chicane is all the right left is always, a bit of a challenge, but the track didn't feel any different really to what I did in the 15 laps of practice. So, I'd say it wasn't like necessarily slippery, but pretty much the same as always, really.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, thank you very much, Owen, for joining us in the box this week, and we will see you next time out in the Netherlands.
Thank you. See you guys later.
See you later, Owen. And well, I said he was going to be the last one, and then one more individual jumped into the box, so we'll get the opportunity to speak to Ollie Matthews about the performance in that race. Now, we've just, of course, spoken to your teammate, but we want to get your perspective, so just talk me through it.
Well, this is something I had very much pre-planned, because I think it was the strategy that brought myself and Owen to P2 and P3. We're obviously in comms together. We were stuck in DRS train with Luca and Shenki for a bit before he ran away, and we're like, let's do something different. I planned on two stopping despite the fact that I could have one stopped, and I just went full push, and so did Owen. I think we got the maximum that we could have done.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It was one of those days where there was a couple of drivers that seemed to have surprising pace. So when you get new contenders, like the fact that we saw Lucas Aracini so quick in qualifying, How hard is it just to adapt to racing against somebody that you don't necessarily know too well what they're going to do?
Well, me and Owen seem to be quite similar pace during the race with Luca. I would put ourselves both a little bit quicker, not by loads, but Luca in quali this game or this season has just been on another level, and neither of us can match him. But we both got a decent start. We both kind of just stuck with, and it played into our hands as he just went longer and longer.
Yeah, absolutely. He did go very long in that first stint, which potentially not necessarily the right decision after all is said and done. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll be seeing you next time out in the Netherlands.
Indeed.
Thank you very much. That will be it. I promise I didn't actually forget Ollie this week. It was just a case of him jumping in rather late. But that will be all of the interviews for today. Have we got any final words, Max, before we head off?
Thank you everyone for tuning in. It was a very good race to watch, and just Chenkovan is so fast. He just dominates this division, and he is just somebody to look out for the rest of the season, and even in other leagues as well. Just keep an eye out for him, because he's certainly a driver that can make a meteoric rise, and he just has so much relentless pace. And yeah, I think he at this stage, even though we're nearing that halfway point, he already at some point pretty much has one hand on that trophy.
We're not even halfway through the season, but that will be it, I think, for this broadcast and for this evening's action. Thank you very much to everybody who joined us here today. We had pretty much consistently 6 viewers, which is really, really good. Thank you very much to everybody for coming along and watching today, and until next time, it is goodbye. Underway. Stamps' authority once again. My word, this could go wrong.
On the brakes, goodness me, what a launch!
Look at that.
It just all comes down to this